Alrighty, here we are. Hello and welcome everybody to Fargone Racing GT Challenge Season 18 here around the Temple of Speed, where dreams are made and dreams are broken as well. We are here at the Monza International Circuit in Italy for 3 18-minute races here around Monza with 3 qualifyings with only 2 sets of tyres. We are underway here for the first qualifying session. The track starting as green with relatively normal temperatures, so nothing for the drivers to be overly concerned about tonight. But yeah, everybody is going to be absolutely sprinting around the track right now to get their laps underway. So who are we going to look to first out of the front runners? I think we'll take a look at Maddie, who is actually currently leading the train of people beginning laps. So the Mustang, who has been waiting and healing from a wrist injury all week, just hoping to be able to race, is here, and she's been looking pretty quick from what I've seen and what I've heard. So currently I think it's going to be Maddie versus Steve Reese, like the common theme of this series seems to be. And Fargone Racing is going to provide some brilliant action here. But here we go for our first lap around the Temple of Speed, rounding Alboreto Curve, or as better known, Parabolica, and towards the start-finish line. Maddie is going to fly down the straight in that Zoomies Mustang, which Zoomies is an appropriate livery to have on a Mustang when it goes so fast in a straight line. Approaching turn 1, spot the 150 board and brake just a couple meters after it, and then pull up for turn 1, first gear, get it tipped into the right, and then get it tipped into the left, and then power out. This is where the Mustang will struggle just a little bit, getting the power down out of turn 1, and now the run through Curva Grande, and the Mustang should easily be flat. So is every car. It should be easy flat around here before you come up to the Della Roggia chicane here. Braking, spot the 100-meter board, and then heavy on the anchors. You've really got to abuse the curbs here around Monza. It's pretty much the name of the game when it comes to finding lap times. As you can see in the background, the cover car for this round, Longy, in the number 1 Ford Mustang, is just sitting there, just pushing just as hard on the AstroTurf there. But Maddie through the second Lesmo, using all of the track at her disposal. But the track is going to be slippery at this stage, and you can see Steve Reese, who's normally the pace setter, just wobbling around there in the background in the McLaren as well. So up towards Ascari. I think each driver should get 2 laps done in this qualifying session. Through the left, now hold it across the right hand side before you flick back across. You've got to take a lot of curb there if you dare to gain as much lap time as possible around this circuit here in Monza, Italy. And up towards Alboreto Curve, Maddie goes and into the braking zone, hard on the anchors. These GT3 cars don't have a ton of downforce, so it's tricky to get around the high speed corners such as Ascari and Alboreto Curve. And now to finish the lap to the line, what's the lap time going to be for Maddie? What's the time we're going to see set the pace? A 48.6 from Maddie, and Steve Reese beats that. So now we're going to go on board with the McLaren of Steve Reese for a lap of Monza as we head down towards turn 1. First gear, just really get it tipped in here, and hopefully Steve's having no problems negotiating that as we get the telemetry enabled as well now. And down through Curva Grande, Steve is already a 10th up on his previous best lap time as he's pushing towards the braking zone. Spot the orange marker on the right hand side of the Armco. Get it down to second gear, first gear in this case, and Steve currently having a little bit of a wobble, but he's up quite significantly. The track will be improving as we go further and further into this session, and Steve-O continuing to push away in towards the second Lesmo. Third gear, get it tipped in, tack the inside curb, and power out. And he's lost a little bit of lap time through the Lesmos, but he's still 2 tenths up. Maddie is 4 tenths up on her previous best. Longy is also 4 tenths up, but he is significantly behind the others. So it's Maddie 3 tenths behind Steve Reese at the moment, and currently 3 tenths up, whereas Steve-O's looking to improve to Ascari, and Longy is also in the 48s, the only other car in the 48s at the moment. As he's backed out of it, he's made a mistake. So now we go to the Mustang of Maddie. Will she be able to topple Steve-O here in the dying stages of this first qualifying session of the night? Rounding Alboreto Curve. This is the driver we watched the whole first lap with, and now we're going to see if she can take pole here in her V8 Ford Mustang. 550 brake horsepower underneath her as she comes to the line now. Will it be pole position? It is. Maddie is going to get P1, but will Longy be able to do anything about it? No, he does a 48.4 P3 for him, only a 10th behind Steve-O. And if Steve-O had just finished his lap, it would have been pole, but he wasn't able to bring it across the line without invalidating. So it's going to be Maddie in race 1 who takes pole position from Steve-O. Then Longy, Hoggy, Ken Blocks, Demon Boost, Bertoni, Edenick, Witchell, Jensen, Swooper, Mark H, Tobasire, and Dave Ross. So that is going to be the first qualifying session here in Monza complete. And now we get ready to go for the grid of race 1, where I'll join you in just a moment's time. I am just going to grab a little bit of water for before the race start, because I've got to top up before the race.
We have some wet conditions. Remember that curves are slippery and watch your braking distance.
Alrighty, I am back here for Fargone Racing GT Challenge, and hello Yusuf into the chat, and Tash, oh god, she's supposed to be nursing a wrist injury and taking it easy, and she puts it on pole. Well, you're not going to stop Maddie. She is absolutely determined, and speaking of determined, the weather is determined here in Monza, as it is raining on the circuit here for race 1, and that's creating an absolutely huge curveball here for the first race of 3. And the 18-minute sprint is going to be burdened by, well, what looks like quite a lot of rain. And if I'm looking at the forecast right on the top right-hand side of your screen, you'll be able to see it. It looks like it could end soon, if that's accurate, which is very interesting. That means we could see a strategy in an 18-minute race, which could be absolutely phenomenal. But we'll have to see how that all pans out. But the race start is going to be wet. Monza Turn 1. We all know how Monza Turn 1 is in sim racing, especially in GT3s on ACC. This is going to be absolute carnage. But we'll have to see how it all ends out, as the timer is got 17 seconds until we go to the line. And anybody's predictions in the chat on who will win as Tash. I actually got told by Maddie before the race. She was actually she was resting through ERD so she could push as hard as she wants here. So she's probably going to be in a bit of pain. If you weren't aware, Maddie has a wrist injury, so it could create a little bit of a curveball. But we'll have to see how it all ends out, as the rain is absolutely pouring and the old man must be snoring. But we'll have to see if he'll be snoring after this one, as Fargone Racing is about to put on an absolute show. And Maddie is going to lead it away alongside Steve Reese. The combo we see on the front row of the grid all too often here in Fargone. I think the real question is, when is anybody going to try and disturb it? But for now, we have these two lining up on the front row alongside each other. Car 4 and Car 6 are going to get ready to take us underway here in the GT Challenge Season 18. And as they come towards the line, the light will go green any moment now, as we'll get the helicam on so we can see everything, and the green flag is waving, and it's go, 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 go here in Monza for Fargone Racing GT Challenge Season 18, round number 6 here at the Monza circuit. And Hoggy in the background not getting off to a great start. Will Steve-O find himself going down the inside on the Mustang, and Maddie, no he doesn't. He's actually under pressure from Longy, who's trying it the long way around. Maddie's got it all crossed up. Under braking, she's had to go off and cut the track from the lead of the races. Oh no, there's a spin there. It's Ken Blocks who's spun around. He's collected collected one of the McLarens. He rejoins to the track. There's even more contact. He hits the McLaren as well. And now he's side by side with the Aston Martin, a swooper, as they go wheel to wheel through Curva Grande. Car number 48 has not even managed to get it towards the braking zone of turn 1. Ross having an absolute nightmare here in Monza. Steve Reese has taken the lead from Maddie as well. I'm not sure where that came from, but we'll get a replay of it here. Go back 10 seconds. Steve is already in the lead, so we'll have to see how this continues to play out. We've missed the move for the lead here on lap 1 through Curva Grande. Maddie probably just ceded the position as she went off and cut the track at turn 1. So Steve-O is now in the lead, who was under pressure from Longy, but Hoggy as well was also wheel rubbing down into turn 1, and now he's going to find himself struggling to stay with the P3 car of Longy. I think we've seen these two battle on track all too often ever since Kyalami. They've just been locked in wheel-to-wheel battle. Not sure what happened at Austria, as I wasn't there. I had some other stuff going on, but now we are looking here in Monza a round later, and we continue on. And yeah, Tash, I would say you're probably right there. She probably just conceded the position because of the track cut. I'd agree with that one. As through turn 1, Maddie is actually going to find herself under a little bit of pressure here from Longy, as we'll get TV cameras back on here, as it doesn't look that wet out there, and I don't think the rain is continuing to pour. Yeah, the track is now just classified as damp, and it's continuing to get drier and drier. The rain has stopped. I did see that on the forecast just before, and I think that could be interesting, as we're 3 minutes in to this 18-minute race already, but with the rate the track could potentially dry out, we could see the dry tyres make just a slight appearance here at the end of this race, which could be very interesting. But Maddie, it doesn't actually come under pressure from Longy at all, and now she is quite close behind Steve-O as we head down through Curva Grande, and I don't think she's going to be close enough to go for a move this time, but it's definitely heating up here in Fargone Racing as they head towards the braking zone. Steve-O knows he doesn't have to go to defensive. It's too wet for her to try and go for a late braking maneuver unless she's absolutely positive she can get it done. But the McLaren looking very, very stubborn to get rotated in these wet conditions. Same with the Mustang, but still Maddie carrying quite a lot of speed here. It is the fastest car at Monza, as it's got so much straight line speed, but right now it looks like she's even more stable through the corners than Steve-O, but she's also pushing it a lot more. They only had 2 sets of tyres each here in Fargone for this round. I dare say that the wet tyres don't come included in that one, which could actually help strategy later on as well. They've only used 1 set of tyres in qualifying, and I'm not sure if they use the same 2 sets that they get access to in the practice session as well, but we'll have to see how it all pans out as Maddie's continuing to push here through Ascari. She runs perfectly on the edge of the racetrack and trying to push towards Steve-O, but he gets a better run through Ascari, as we're actually going to move back to Charlton Bertoni, who is under a little bit of pressure here from the Nissan GTR of Mark Witchell as we head through Parabolica, and that is a Lamborghini, the Red Bull liveried Lamborghini. I'm not sure, I believe I saw that. I don't know if this was in any of the other rounds. I don't recognize the name, but I recognize the livery, so we'll have to see. But I believe it was ran in the Bathurst 12-hour that Sensational TV hosted for ASA, which is obviously where Fargone hosts their league through nowadays. As down into turn 1, the Lambo holding on from the Nissan GTR, and Maddie has dropped quite significantly off from Steve. Oh no, sorry, Maddie has gapped Longy quite significantly, I believe, and Longy's actually falling into the clutches of Hoggy, but Maddie is going to go for a move down the inside for the race lead at the Della Roggia chicane. Can she pull up alongside? No, not quite. She's looking very punchy in these wet conditions, and right now she is putting the pressure onto Steve-O for the race lead. As the track is just getting drier, the Mustang will continue to get stronger as we head further and further into this race. As through the second Lesmo, Steve-O using a little bit more track. He knows it's time to push. He's finding himself under a lot of pressure, and I don't think Steve-O is going to want to lose the place, because if he loses the place on a Mustang, the odds are he's not going to be able to get back past. He had a great race start to get the position up into the lead, and now he's being hounded by Maddie as we head into Ascari. Maddie not close enough this time. She takes a lot more curb, but that is because she is in that big Mustang. The McLaren is quite fragile when it comes to the curbs here on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and just in general as well, as there's 12.5 minutes to go here in Fargone Racing and the pressure will continue to build on the back of that number 6 McLaren as Maddie is continuing to put the pressure on. She even dummied to move up the inside of Alboreto curve. As now onto the straight we go again. The track is now classified as greasy, so they're on wet tyres in what is not a very wet track, but there's still a little bit of spray. But Maddie pulls to the left-hand side. She's going to try swoop through for the lead, and now she's inching ahead as we head towards the braking zone. Steve-O's going to have to brake very late if he wants to get the position held on as he's defending the inside. They go side by side through the first chicane. Steve-O trying it the long way round. He's being forced all the way to the exit curb as they're still pulling a drag race as we head through Curva Grande. Will it be a Grande move here for Maddie as she's trying it the long way round here on Steve-O as we head through towards the De La Roggia chicane? Who's going to get the move done? It's going to be Maddie who takes the lead. Steve-O puts the nose back in, can't pull up alongside, but now the roles have reversed. Steve-O is the car in P2, Maddie's the car in P1, and now Maddie is going to try use her pace in the wet to pull away, but a sensational move from Maddie to get the move done into the lead, and the race will continue to push on. Steve-O's going to have to dig deep here if he wants to try take it to the Mustang, if he wants to try take it to Maddie, who's the driver behind the wheel. He's going to have to use all of his ability, and now that battling invited Longy into it as well as Hoggy, so they're going to be hounding the back of that car number 6 McLaren that has just been made a move on. Will he continue to fall down in this race? We'll have to find out. We're only 8 minutes in and the race will continue. Steve-O is just bogging down a little bit through Ascari. The curb's not treating him nicely. The McLaren struggling just a little bit as there's a yellow flag. I'm not sure for what car. I believe it's car 48, which would be Dave Ross, as Perkins has actually managed to get into this session as well. I don't think he was in here during qualifying, as that was an absolutely immense battle between the race leaders. As we'll go to the car 48 and get a replay of what happened, just went off at turn 1, has to take the runoff area for the Cat Mustang, and that's definitely a change of pace. That's why we saw the yellow flag. He spun it around on the grass, and trying to get a Mustang back going in greasy conditions is not the funnest thing in the world, but he'll continue on trundling around the lap as we go back to Maddie. And the replay should end in just a moment's time. As there we go. And through Curva Grande, Steve-O's actually falling back into the clutches of this pink and black cover car Mustang for this round, as we'll go and we'll get a cockpit cam here of Longy and just see how he's wrangling this Mustang around Monza down to first gear, short shifts to second. The track is very slippery. There's not a lot of spray left, so I'd say it's more on the dry side at this point, but it's still going to be really tricky to get the wet tyres to not overheat, but also it's not quite grippy enough for the dries. Steve-O looks like he has the ultimate pace here over Longy, but Maddie is absolutely checked out, 1.2 seconds out in the lead, so she has the pace here in the wet, and I think that she is just going to continue to push and pull away, much as Steve Reese is doing to Longy. Hoggy is also only 1.3 seconds behind, so I think any sort of incidents could leave him to pick up the pieces, as Bertoni has a car a second behind him of Ken Block, so he's going to be feeling the pressure just a little bit here in Monza. All of the battles going on here in Fargone Racing, but we'll just stay with Steve, as I think that he is the best bet to be revolved in any sort of racing here in Monza, as through Alboreto curve we go. And Steve-O is really going to have to dig deep if he wants to try and win, but I don't think that's going to be his main goal. I think his goal is going to be to hold on to P2 and stay ahead of Longy, who's the hounding Mustang, who is only a couple of tenths back from him. The gap is only 8 tenths between them, whereas the gap is 1.8 in front of him. So Longy, if he just puts his head down and continues to push, he might be finding himself in a position to try and take a P2 and make it a Mustang 1-2 in Monza, which wouldn't be the biggest surprise. But Steve-O, this could be his first time, at least while I'm watching, where he doesn't get a top 2 here in this Season 18 of GT Challenge. He's always finding himself in the fight for the win, but now he got overtaken while in the lead, and he's falling back constantly towards the Mustang of Longy. So this is going to be really, really interesting to see, as through the Lesmos we go. This is where the McLaren is stronger than the Ford Mustang. This is where we're seeing him gain the time on Longy every single lap, but then as we head onto the straight, he's always 8 tenths behind, so I think this gap will continue to just stay around the same gap, but just at different points throughout the lap. So Longy is going to have to really dig deep here if he wants to make this work, as Bertoni has Ken Block's only 8 tenths behind him. But other than that, there's not too much other on-track action going on here in Monza, as there's only 7 minutes to go. Everybody's just got to nurse their cars around this very slippery Monza if they want to make this work, and I wonder if this would affect the grip going into the next qualifying session as well. I'm not sure how far apart they are in the actual in-game time. It could be really interesting if they're only a couple of tenths apart from each other, as opposed to being just a little bit more slippery. But or we go back to dry conditions for the next qualifying session, where they're then going to have to manage their tyres. But I don't think it's going to be too bad for the drivers out here now, because the whole part of these 3-part races is the fact that you really have to strategize, which we saw in the Nürburgring triple header as well. And now we have a triple header in Monza. And I think the most likely scenario is now they have 2 sets of tyres. They've used one in qualifying already, and I think they're just going to allocate a qualifying compound and a race compound. One that they use for both races, one that they use for both qualifyings. But that's not for me to decide. That's for the drivers to decide. That, or they could use one for each race. It all depends on how they want to play this out. Or if the track gets dry enough here, there's 5 minutes to go, there is still the chance the track goes dry, but also, with how long a pit stop is, I think the overheating wets will still be the better play as they continue to push on here. They're in the 49, so I would say that the track is more than grippy enough for dry tyres at this point. It's just still pretty slippery, and the wets are still working clearly, looking at their lap times, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this continues to play out. And there's still 2 races ahead of us, so Maddie might take the race 1 victory, but we don't know about the other. That's really going to be interesting. A triple header is extremely, extremely difficult to manage, and it's going to take a lot from the drivers. And with Maddie nursing a wrist injury, her wrist is only going to get more and more and more tired as the race goes on. So I think it's going to, as the races go on, I should say. So it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to develop. Right now, she has the fastest lap out front though, 49.4 to a 49.7 being the next quickest lap. Stevo and Maddie are the only 2 drivers who are out there in the 49s. As we'll move back to Longy versus Hoggy, as these guys continue to battle on here in this 18-minute race. The track is now fast, so it is dry tyre weather. As we head through towards turn 1, the wet tyres will be overheating quite significantly, which is a challenge the drivers are going to be battling, as Stevo has now done a 49.2. Maddie stays with her 0.4, so Stevo is picking up the pace as we go further and further into this session. And there is 4 minutes to go, and the gap is actually starting to close between himself and Maddie. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. The McLaren making a charge back now that the track is getting drier. But also, Hoggy is on a charge here, trying to get past this pink Mustang that we look at right in front of our eyes as they head through the 2 Lesmos. The Ferrari will be quicker through here. The Ferrari's also is nicer on its tyres, so it could be interesting to see how different cars handle with very much overheating tyres. And right now, it looks like the Ferrari is eating it up as we head down the straight towards Ascari. He's right underneath the rear wing of this Mustang as they head towards Ascari. He's not going to go for a move here. It's too reckless. But if he picks his cards and picks his poison correctly, he could find himself going for a move on the Mustang as soon as he dares. And getting it done into turn 1 will be a hard task though, as it's very, very quick in a straight line. We'll have to see how he plays his cards. It's so difficult to overtake a Mustang around any circuit, let alone one of the ones with the biggest straights on the calendar and the most power down time on the calendar, as Stevo is actually falling away from Maddie again. So maybe it's a game of managing. He's pushed a little bit too hard, overheated his tyres just a little bit too much, and now he's falling away as he's done a 49.4 on that last lap. Maddie did a 48.4. She is absolutely flying here in Monza, and she's going to continue to pull away from Stevo, as actually Longy is pulling away from Hoggy quite significantly, but the gap is still going to be close as the Ferrari overshoots turn 1, and that is that pretty much over. He's going to have to continue to close, but the gap is now a second with 2.5 minutes to go. Next lap I think, will be the final lap of this race. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Hoggy can close back up. But speaking of close battles, Bertoni is finding himself under a bit of pressure from Ken Blocks further down the field for the P5 spot. The Lamborghini versus Mustang. The Mustang significantly quicker in a straight line, as we can see it towards the Della Roggia chicane. That Mustang is gaining absolute buckets of time in the braking zone, but the Ferrari, no, not the Ferrari, the other Italian brand, Lamborghini, is absolutely flying through the corners, as you would expect from a car that's specifically designed for them. It's not the quickest in a straight line, but it is absolutely rapid around the corners, so it's going to be a matter of who manages their car the best here in the dying stages. The next lap will be the last lap of this race in Monza, and Bertoni is having to defend the right-hand side. He knows that Blocks is underneath his rear wing, as they're going to battle it out here for the end of the top 5 in race 1, and just look at how close that Mustang is getting towards the braking zone of Ascari, but he's not going to go for a move there. This is where Bertoni can just pull away a little bit through the corners. He's going to have to play his cards absolutely correctly here if he wants to hold on to P5, but Blocks is knocking on his door as they head down towards Alboreto Curve. Will the Mustang go for it here? Surely not. I think he's going to wait, but still, Bertoni defending the inside, and Blocks tried to find the inside. So it's getting really, really heated here for the edge of the top 5 with a minute to go. This is coming onto the final lap of this Grand Prix, and it's going to be Bertoni defending from Blocks, the Mustang versus Lamborghini, as we head down towards turn 1. Surely the Mustang has the legs in a straight line to go for it, as they inch closer and closer and closer to the Lamborghini, as Bertoni defends the inside as we head into the braking zone, and that is Blocks not able to go for a move under braking, but now he has Curva Grande and the Della Roggia chicane. It's on the exit we go. Bertoni finds a little bit of breathing room, but it's only 5/10 of breathing room as we head through the final lap of this race. It's only been 18 minutes, but it's been quite the chaotic 18 minutes. But Tony's going to continue to try and hold on, and Blocks is on a charge here. The Ford Mustang is absolutely flying in Monza. You would expect nothing less, and Bertoni cracks under the pressure, hits the inside curb, has to cut the racetrack to try and hold on to the place. He does so. He's not going to cede the position, as he never was behind the Mustang at any point, but it's going to put him under immense amount of pressure here as we head through the second Lesmo. This is for the end of the top 5 as we head through. The timer hits 0. Matty is heading towards Parabolica now, but we're going to stay with these two as it's going to be a drag race to the line, I feel. Blocks is putting the pressure on, but he's not getting the slipstream. He just has to get an amazing run through Ascari on the Lamborghini. We saw these two nearly go side by side on the last lap, the penultimate lap, and here we are again towards Parabolica, towards Alboreto Curve, and this is going to be one last dash here for Blocks to try and take P5 here in Monza in race 1. I'm sure we'll continue to see these two battle away as Bertoni defends the inside and Blocks holds the outside, tries to get to the run to the line, but I don't think he's going to hold on. He is going to hold on. I don't think Blocks is going to be able to attack. Towards the line they go. The Mustang is closing, but Bertoni holds on to P5, takes the 5th place. Blocks comes on in 6th position. Mark Witchell just a bit behind them, gets 7th place in the Nissan GTR. Zach Jensen is still rumbling around the circuit in his Ford Mustang that is very, very similar to the Ken Blocks car. But what an ending for the P5 place, and what an ending and what a race it was for race 1, and that's only the beginning of it. So we have 2 more ahead of us, 2 more qualifyings ahead of us as well, as Jensen takes P8 Demon Boost, will round the final corner and pick up a wonderful P9 position. Swooper is going to come home in that beautiful Aston Martin to get P10. Toba Sire is going to come home in P11 in the West McLaren, obviously based on the older McLaren F1 liveries. Absolutely a looker of a livery. As towards the line, Toba Sire goes to just finish outside the top 10, as that was Mark H who's gone off the track at Parabolica. I could hear the tyre squeals, and he might actually lose out here to Dave Ross. I think he's just going to be able to limp it to the line in time, so that other stunning Aston Martin is going to pick up P12. Dave Ross will come home in P13, and that is your finishing order. So Matty takes the victory in race 1 after an action-packed battle with Steve Reese. She just had the pace here in Monza and pulled away while she could. Once we got to the dry period, it was pretty evenly matched, and they both have a fastest lap time within 400ths of each other. So it's going to be Maddie followed by Steve Reese, then Longy, Hoggy, Bertoni, Blocks, Witchell, Jensen, Demon Boost, Swooper, Tobasiah, Mark Cage, Dave Ross, and Lee Perkins and Eda Nick have only just joined into the session at the start of the race. So that is race 1 completed out of 3, with plenty of more racing action to come in Fargone Racing, which will be lucky to see in just a few moments' time, as the session will tick over very, very shortly. But that was a very, very good race 1. I hope to see the rest of them be exactly like that. But we saw it in the Nürburgring triple header as well. It doesn't always end out that way. The first 2 races of the triple header were very, very exciting in Nürburgring, and then one wasn't so great. We've had one great. Hopefully we can see 2 more, but now... Oh, wait, no, you have a practice. I forgot about that. I forgot that they have a 5-minute, like, cooldown period before the second qualifying and second race. Oh, well, I completely forgot about that. Anyway... You know what I'll do? Let's make this interesting. Hold on. How about we go annoy the drivers? How do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? Maddie, Steve-O, and it was Longy. I'm just asking the top 3 if they want to do interviews in between each of the races. Hopefully they see it. Anyway. Yeah, so they have a 5-minute cooldown in between the... Oh, sorry, I'm getting my words out eventually. In between the races. There we go. I found the words eventually. But yeah, that first race was absolutely phenomenal. So now, while we have a ceasefire in all of the action, effectively, Monza, what a track it is. And now I think it is time to pull up the wonderful, wonderful fact sheet I have about this circuit. So the Monza International Circuit is a very famous circuit in Italy, deemed the Temple of Speed, as I've said a few times, based in Monza, Italy, who would have guessed. And yeah, it's a capacity of 118,865 people. It's FIA Grade 1, and it broke ground on the 15th of May, 1922, 102 years ago. That's when this circuit was first seen, and it opened on the 3rd of September, 1922, also 102 years ago. It was the architect behind this absolute masterpiece was Alfredo Rosselli, and it has had a lot of different names over the years. Circuit di Milano, Autodromo di Monza, Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, which is the present name. It currently hosts F1, the 6-hour race in WEC, International GT Open, GT World Challenge Europe are the biggest series that race around there, and plenty of track days as well. And the modern Grand Prix layout is 5.793 kilometers in length, 3.6 miles for any of you weird people that speak in the weird units. And the race lap record is a 1 minute 21.046, with an average speed around the lap of 257.35 kilometers an hour, set by Rubens Barrichello in the 2004 Ferrari F2004. Who would have guessed the F2004 name means it was built in 2004? But anyway, now there's only 51 seconds to go in this absolutely wonderful cooldown session. So I'm just going to take a breather myself and stop talking for a minute before we get ready to go back underway for racing for race 2 and quali 2. I'll be back in a couple seconds time.
Green light, give it all you can.
As I join you back here in Monza for the second qualifying for the second race, and the mad dash begins again. And I think once again we'll start off this qualifying with Maddie, our race winner of race 1, and now she wants to carry the momentum into race 2, I'm sure, with a pole position. But we saw in the first qualifying session, Steve-O was the car who was quicker, but he invalidated on his final run, so Maddie took the pole position by just a couple hundredths of a second, and now I think Steve-O is going to be hunting for a win here in race 2, and I think this time he's going to be more careful with the track limits, and it's going to play right into his hands, I think, and he's going to try and snatch the pole position away from this very, very fast Mustang that sits in front of him. So, through the second Lesmo, we've had the stats about the track, and now you get to just appreciate the lap just that ever bit more. And I think that we are going to do a pure onboard lap here with Maddie. No talking here for our first lap, because then we can catch all the action in the second lap, where we'll go with Steve-O, where I will be talking and running you through a whole lap of Monza through the cockpit camera. So, Maddie will be the first person to start a qualifying lap, and we'll go on board with her. I'm going to shut up so you can listen to this V8 purr. So lap done there for Maddie, and now we'll go cockpit cam with Steve-O, with the telemetry up to walk you through a lap of Monza as he takes provisional pole with a 47.6 here in Monza as he begins his second lap in qualifying. Maddie only has a 48.3, so I think it's safe to say Steve-O is going to have pole. But here we go, spotting the braking. We saw him pull up very, very nicely through turn 1 and 2, just after the 150. He broke, tipped it in first gear, and the car will just about slow down for the corner as flat out through Fargone, climbing up the gears, up the Ks an hour, and approaching the Delorgia chicane at about 262 Ks an hour, spotting the brakes just at the end of the Armco on the right, where you see the orange second gear get it through over the curbs. You can't be as aggressive on the curbs as you can with the Mustang, and currently he's only a couple hundredths up, just braking at the end of the Armco on the right hand side, down to third gear, get it tipped in, use the little amount of downforce you have through the Lesmos, braking at the 50 board, third gear, tip it in over the curb, and even the McLaren just getting a little bit wobbly from a tiny tap of the curb on the inside of the second Lesmo. As down the straight, Steve Reese will go. He approaches Ascari at about 267 Ks an hour, and on the brakes, just at the 100 board, third gear, over the inside curb, hold it right. You've really got to open up this left-hand side, and oh, he has a bit of a wobble. Has he invalidated again? No, I think he's kept it on the racetrack this time, and he's picking up a little bit of a slipstream from Matty here, so it looks like he's going to improve even more in the dying stages of this qualifying session, which will just cement him onto pole, as if he wasn't already. Matty's only 3/10 up, Steve-O's 3/10 up on what is much more competitive of a lap time. He ran a bit deep through Alboreto curve, but to the line he goes now in the McLaren. What is the pole time in race 2 going to be? It is going to be a 1 minute 47.4, an absolute flyer in qualifying. Pole by over 5/10 of a second from Steve-O to Matty, then Blocks, who's come out of nowhere after a not great race 1, only a top 6. He gets P3 here. Then you have Longy, Eden Nick, Lee Perkins. Then you have Hoggy, so a bit further down than the last race. Then you have Bertoni, Richel, Demon Boost, Tobasiah, Dave Ross, Swooper, Jensen, and Mark H. But what a pole position lap from Steve-O. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that in the third qualifying, but what a lap that was here in qualifying 2 here for Monza. And now we get ready to go racing for race number 2. The cars will be gridded up in just a moment's time, but an absolutely phenomenal lap from Steve-O. And now the cars are on the grid and ready to go. Yeah, that is one of the laps I've ever gone on board with. That was very, very pacey. So we'll hit drive, and now we'll get the good old free camera going to run you down the grid in hopefully an adequate amount of time. So Steve-O's white and black 6 Fargone Racing McLaren once again on display, as you would expect. Then the Zoomies Mustang, which I've gone over so many times. And you have the 2 coloured Mustangs with the similar scheme, so we've been through them a million times. Then you've Eden Nick's purple Fargone Racing BMW, then the orange Max Verstappen Ferrari 296, then you have Hoggy's very nice red and yellow Ferrari livery, then you have the McLaren, not McLaren, the Lamborghini Red Bull livery, which would probably trigger quite a lot of people, but not me. And then you have Steve-O's beautiful Nissan GTR red, blue and black 74 car. Then you have the blue 666 McLaren, looking very nice in the West McLaren. Then the Caterpillar Ford Mustang. Then you have the beautiful Aston Martin, the rip-off of Ken Block's, and just the absolute stunner of Car 87. I am obsessed with this livery, always have been, always will be. I'm obsessed with Aston Martins. You should know that about me if you've watched a few of the streams here in Fargone GT Challenge Season 18, or if you watched any ERD races. But now we get ready to go racing in Fargone Racing GT Season 18 for race 2 here in Monza, and it is looking to be an absolute cracker. If it's anything to go off, race 1 was phenomenal, and now we have a second bite of the cherry here in the second of the 2 18-minute races. Steve-O a little bit slow to get going, But now we get ready to go racing once again here in Monza. It's going to be an action-packed start, an action-packed race, I'm sure, but it's all focus to the green flag waving as the car's going 2x2 in Monza. Steve-O leading it alongside Matty, but this time he's the one who got pole position. And will Matty be able to out-drag into turn 1, or will Steve take the lead through turn 1, or keep the lead, more importantly, this time through turn 1 again? It's all to find out as we head down towards turn 1 and through the rest of race 2. We still have race 3 ahead of us, but now the focus shifts to the race start here in race 2. It's a bit hotter than race 1. No rain this time. Steve-O gets off to a good start. The green flag is waving, and we are go here in race number 2. And Ken Blocks and Longy already racing. They might even go 3 wide here with Matty, as I think that it is going to be Longy who's trying to go down the around the outside. Matty is trying it around the outside of Steve-O here as we head through turn 1. Can't pull that up. It's Longy who wins out from Ken Blocks. And now we head through Curva Grande, and it's going to be Longy leading away from Ken Blocks at the edge of the top 3, with Steve-O ahead of Matty for P1 and P2 as Eda Nick is falling away just a little as we head down towards the Della Roggia chicane. Will we see Ken Blocks try and fight this one back? No, we won't. And Charlton Bertoni also not going back down the inside of Eda Nick. And now it's 2x2 and a little bit of single file, but 2x2 down the back. Demon Boost was side by side with Mark Witchell through the chicane, and Dave Ross was also side by side with the car behind him of Hoggy as we head. Hoggy's actually ahead of him now, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. And now we're going to move back to Steve-O, who's leading the way from Matty, and lap 1 is halfway through being completed. They just have Ascari and Curva Alboreto to go. And through the chicane we go. And Steve-O looks a lot more comfortable now that it's dry. Now the track is optimum. This is where he can really push the limits. And now the natural straight line speed of the Mustang is going to be the only thing Matty has going for her, except for the driver behind the wheel, of course. They're both absolutely phenomenal. But the McLaren now will try its best. Steve-O behind the wheel wants the victory. He can smell it. He had it one hand on the trophy before it all fell apart for him 8 minutes into race 1. Will we see a similar position change again in race 2? It's seeing flashbacks, but it's not wet this time. The McLaren looks comfortable. Matty also looks comfortable though. They're very, very similar pace. They weren't in qualifying, but here in the race they look pretty equal. So it's going to be all about who stays consistent, who stays the quickest out of the two of them. Oh no, Eda Nick has had a spin around, and we're going to grab a replay of that one. So I want to see if he's been tapped around, as we'll go back 30 seconds onto the straight. Eda Nick with Bertoni behind him, and down the straight he goes in his purple BMW. I'd wonder how one would lose on his own through turn 1, so surely he gets a tap around, but he has no one near him at all. Down into the turn 1 braking zone, it looks like he's, oh no, Bertoni overshot it completely, and he's been absolutely rear-ended there, has Eda Nick, and that is really, really unfortunate there to be spun around by Bertoni, who will probably have his penalty coming his way post-race. But this top 4 train staying pretty close together, but Longy 1.1 away from Matty, so that gap is beginning to form again. Blocks has a similar pace to last race, but he's in P4 this time around instead of fighting for the final place of the top 6. But Steve-O is coming under a little bit of pressure from Matty here, who is 6/10 behind Steve-O, so the gap is pretty close between these two as they continue to push on through this race. Hard on the anchors for Alboreto Curve. And this is where the McLaren will be stronger. I believe that the McLaren is stronger through the first 2, Lesmos and Ascari and Parabolica. And the Mustang just, as always, making its time up on the straights. But the gap is only 2/10, and it's closing with the slipstream. Will Matty go for the lead early, as she is right underneath the rear wing of Steve-O as we head down towards turn 1. Steve-O defends the inside. Matty is going to try it the long way round like she did in race 1. It's an absolute carbon copy, but this time Steve-O gives the squeeze. He's not willing to give up this time. He gets the elbows out, holds on to the lead this time, and now Matty has to reset, get back into a rhythm and go again, as they nearly came to blows. The curb working in Matty's favour to get her pulled up for the second corner, and just about keeps it on the racetrack. and these two will continue to be locked in the battle as we continue on through this race. But this time, Steve-O shuts the door and says, no thank you, I want to win this race. And now he has 13.5 minutes to continue to hold on as we head through the Lesmos. Maddie is just a little bit slower through this portion of the racetrack, but that is more car related than anything. Steve-O runs very wide, actually touching the grass there on the exit and down the straight towards Ascari. He's not going to be under any threat from that Ford Mustang, not this time, but onto the straight. Maybe again, as the gap is only 0.4 of a second, and Maddie, I think this time, is going to try force her way down the inside. She liked the outside move in race 1, tried it again in race 2. This time, Steve was wiser of it and was able to hold on to the place. Surely now, she'd have to try the inside. She's going to have to try everything here to get a move done on Steve-O. He's going to make his car as wide as a double-decker bus in London during peak traffic. He's really going to have to try and defend for his life, and Maddie's really going to have to work her way past through this one as we head onto the straight. She's very much closer to Steve-O this time around. I think it's going to be easy pickings here for the Ford Mustang. This time she does go to the inside. She's gaining, she's inching ahead, she's inching forward, and this time I think it's going to be quite easy for Maddie to pull off, but maybe not as they head into the braking zone. Maddie leaves Steve-O a little bit too much space, just gives him too much room. She's still going to try this the long way round as down towards Curva Grande we go. Maddie is still going to be racing on the exit. This time Steve-O is the long way round, but I think he's inching ahead, but the Mustang using its legs in a straight line to try and hold on to the lead here as we head down towards the Della Roggia chicane. I think that Steve-O is going to try and outbrake the Mustang as into the braking zone we go. Maddie on the outside, Steve-O on the inside. They're giving each other plenty of room. They're being very respectful, but on the exit, I think that Maddie's going to be able to get this done. She will have the inside into the Lesmos. Steve-O still trying this. They've been side by side for half a lap now, but this time Maddie is going to nearly get this one done, but maybe not. She has a wobble. Now she's in front. That's a beautiful piece of racecraft between these two drivers. Steve-O, I'm sure, is not giving up this one just yet, though, as we head down towards Ascari. Will the McLaren try again? Is he going to try go down the inside of Ascari? Surely not, but he's right underneath the rear wing of the Ford Mustang as we head into the braking zone. He's going to stay behind single file. Maddie now takes the lead of race 2, and it's a carbon copy almost of what we saw in race 1, but just a bit longer through the lap. The battle is well and truly on now here in Monza, as there's 11 minutes to go. 11 minutes more of this as they continue to squabble away. Steve-O has a little bit more pace in the dry, but Maddie has the legs in a straight line. They'll continue to battle as we head onto the straight again here in Monza. It's now Steve-O following behind the Mustang. He has a poor exit onto the straight. He's going to have a hard task ahead of him to try and get back past a Mustang. He's not going to have the straight line. He's going to have to try get it done somewhere else, and that's already case in point here. And as we head down towards turn 1, he is absolutely nowhere close. He's 0.4 of a second back from that Mustang, but he has the raw pace through the corners, and that's how he's going to have to wrestle his way through, as in the background, Blocks and Longy continue to battle away as well as we head down through Curva Grande. The McLaren in the slipstream, gaining and gaining and gaining and gaining on Maddie, and he's flashing the lights again to try and distract Maddie. He loves to do that trick a lot. As down into the Della Roggia chicane we go. He's not close enough to go for a move, but I think towards the end of this lap is where he's going to have to try and pounce. He's really going to have to try and get a move done through one of the corners. I don't think the straight will work for him against the Mustang. Maddie's made a mistake. She's wide. She's on the grass and the gravel as well, for that matter. That's how wide she was. That invites Steve-O right here, right now, to try and go for a move down the straight. It's in the slipstream he tucks. The Mustang significantly bigger, so it's punching a perfect size hole in the air for him to just gain and gain and gain and gain. But still, the Mustang, strong in a straight line, stays ahead towards Ascari. This is where he's quicker, but he has a little bit of a snap there at Ascari, trying to keep it on the right-hand side curve. He loses a little bit of time out to Maddie. He's going to have a really good run through Curva de Alboreto if he wants to try and get the place back for the lead, but he has 9 minutes to do it. But we saw such a similar situation in Kyalami, where Steve-O was behind and hounding and hounding and hounding Maddie. Even if he had better pace, he couldn't get through because the Mustang's that strong in a straight line, and that effect is doubled here around Monza, and I think it's going to be really hard work for him to try and get past as the gap is 0.6 of a second. He's barely within slipstream. He gains so much time in the middle of a lap, but Maddie just has the pace where it matters onto all of the major acceleration zones around the circuit. And I think this is going to be ultimately what wins a race 2 here, but we still have 8.5 minutes for that to change. As car number 15 has had a moment. That is Eden Nick, who's had another moment. Oh no. What has happened? I need to know. Go back 30 seconds. The BMW M4 GT3 has already been in the wars in this race. Surely it couldn't get any worse for him. Into Ascari. Look at how beaten down that M4 is. He can basically not turn. He pulls off to the side of the track. Oh, that is race 2 completed for Ethan Nick. It's just not worth going back out into the circuit in such a short race with so much damage. It's really unfortunate as there is this stricken BMW. But now we move back to the leaders. Maddie versus Stevo. Maddie's a lot further away on this straight than she was this time last lap, as we'll get the helicam going here. In Monza is actually the gap between Longy and Blocks is similar to the one between Maddie and Reese, so it's going to be really fascinating to see how it plays out for the final podium place as well. As there's 7 minutes to go. So only a few more laps to go. I can't remember how many laps it was last time around in race 1, but it would have been more this race anyway because it isn't wet. So Maddie currently holds the fastest lap of this race with a 47.2. That's faster than the pole time. They're absolutely pushing themselves to the limit. Steve has a 47.4, a little bit slower than his quali time. Maddie has the fastest lap of the races and qualifying so far with a 47.2. She's absolutely flying. It's like she's got a rocket ship strapped to the back of her Ford Mustang, but as Fernando Alonso says, you can strap a rocket ship onto the back of the car and you'll still be 11th, but in this case, for Maddie, it's P1 no matter what she seems to be doing, just not in qualifying. It looks like she can't get the tyres fired up in time, whereas Steve-O can. Maybe it's just a case of increasing the pressure a little bit. I don't know, I'm speculating. That's what I've got to do here as a commentator. I don't have all the facts, but it's really fascinating here in Monza how Steve-O just has so much raw pace in qualifying, but he doesn't have the pace to hold it out here in the races against Maddie. He's actually lost a second again, so we're going to go back to Longy versus Ken Blocks and watch the Mustang on Mustang battling, as Tash during that battle says, so much respect between them while side by side on the track. I love to see it, yeah. So do I. It's really, really good watching Maddie and Steve-O go at it. They just leave each other plenty of space. I think, Longy has a massive snap there. I think Maddie left Steve-O a little bit too much space on the inside of turn 1 when she was trying to go down the inside. She was just all the way over. It really compromised her entry into the corner, and Steve-O nearly shut the door, but she managed to get it done anyway. So it doesn't really matter, but it definitely made it a lot harder on herself to get that one done. But she got it done. They went side by side all the way through the Lesmos. It was so good between the two of them. Such good racing. It's really good to see here in Fargone, and that's just the standard of racing you'd expect to see between two very, very quick drivers. And speaking of quick drivers, Longy and Ken Blocks are very, very close to each other. We've been looking at this battle for about half a lap now. They stay stagnant, but the gap is only 0.3 of a second as they drive out of turn 1. And Longy is absolutely sending it to stay ahead of Blocks here, as there is 4 minutes 40 to go, so probably 3 more laps in this race at Monza, and Longy will take a podium from Ken Blocks, who's just hounding the back of his fellow Ford Mustang. As we're going to go, and we're going to have a full onboard lap here with Ken Blocks as he chases down Longy. Mustang onboard chasing a Mustang. Let's see how this plays out. There we go. Onboard lap completed, and every time I seem to do an onboard lap with a car that's chasing the car in front of them, they seem to lose an absolute load of time, as Longy, after a few mistakes, even just from the moment I went on board with him, he ran wide at the first Lesmo. So, yeah, it's quite frustrating in that sense, but anyway. The gap is still only 8/10 between them. 2 minutes to go, so onto the penultimate lap of the race we go. Actually, depending on what the game thinks, this could be the final lap of the race we're going on to. We'll go with Maddie here quickly. Yeah, this next lap will be the final lap of this race. Cast a curse yet for sure. As the final lap of this race, I believe, is now underway in Monza. So another minute to go. Maddie, 1.7 seconds out in the lead from Stevo, who is undisputably normally the quickest driver in the field, and Maddie is absolutely pacing him here in Monza. Well, not absolutely pacing him. She's not really pacing him, but she has the overall pace here in Monza, and it's really, really good to see her taking the fight to Stevo again. I mean, some would argue it's just how quick the Mustang is here, but still, it takes a hell of a driver to beat Stevo, no matter the car, no matter the track. And Maddie looks like she's the one to do it for potentially all three. We'll have to see how that plays out, as I'm sure he's going to get pole in qualifying 3 as well. But Maddie got the win in race 1 and the pole in race 1, and she had to overtake Stevo in the wet conditions of race 1 as well. Now, in an optimum track, she didn't get pole position. She was hounding at Stevo for the first about 10 minutes of the race before she had an absolutely sensational move around down the inside of turn 1, and they went side by side all the way until the Lesmos, and she got it done down the inside of the fast right-hander before they went into the second Lesmo. And here we go for the final couple of corners here in race number 2. Maddie has driven an absolutely phenomenal drive here, as there is 10 seconds to go. The timer should hit 0 before she crosses the line. She rounds Curva de Alboreto. This should be the final lap. She's having an absolute miracle triple header. The timer hits 0. Maddie is going to take the victory in race 2. She takes the checkered flag, victorious again with the fastest lap of the race as well, being a 47.237 out in front of Stevo with a 47.3 fastest lap. She's absolutely flying. She didn't get pole, but it doesn't look like it with her pace. She gets P1. Stevo gets P2. Longy gets P number 3 from Blocks, who improves his position on the last race by 2. Demon Boost gets P5. Mark Witchell comes home in the P6 place. Lee Perkins is going to get P7. Then Zach Jensen gets P8. Bertoni gets 9th. Hoggy gets 10th. Tobasaya is going to come across the line here to get 11th place. So Maddie currently 2 for 2 here in Monza. Will she go for the triple crown here almost? Well, that's not really the triple crown, but all 3 races here in the triple header. It's going to be really interesting to see if she can do it. Swooper gets P12. Mark H gets P13. Dave Ross gets P14. And the unfortunate Eda Nick gets P15. So that is race 2 complete. It's done and dusted. Maddie 2 for 2 right now. She has one of the 2 pole positions. I think Stevo's going to get the other pole position, if I'm honest. He's just super quick around a lap here in qualifying. But this time the track was 25 and 30, 25 ambient, 32 track. Maybe we'll even see some rain again thrown in the mix. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But coming into the final race, Maddie is trying to hunt for all 3. It's going to be really interesting. The gap was only a second and a half by the end of the race between herself and Stevo. So the race is going to be well and truly on. Stevo's not going to want to lose out again in Fargone for the 3rd time in a row at Monza. It's going to be really, really interesting, this racing. If reverse grid, Eden Nick will be on for a win. Yeah, exactly, right? That's the mentality to have. Tash with the wonderful insight. So we will have the cooldown period before before race 3 as well, so obviously that is something we just are going to have to wait for, sadly, but then we can get jumping into the racing action again, so we'll tick over to the practice in just a few minutes' time, as you can actually get a little gauge as to who's swapping the tyres over if you really pay attention. There we go.
Go, go, go.
Free practice 3 gets underway, so we have a 5-minute cooldown before third qualifying and the third race and the final race of the night. So I will be back in about 5 minutes time, and then we get back underway. I'll be back. I'll see you in a moment, as we'll just give you quickly. I'll give you a nice little shot of the grid to look at while we wait. I'll be back.
light, green light. Go, go, go.
Alrighty. We are back here for qualifying 3 and race number 3, the last event of the night here in Fargone Racing GT Challenge Season 18. And 2 qualifying laps ensue for all of the drivers once again. Maddie and Stevo are the ones to watch. And once again, we're going to do the one quiet onboard lap, this time with Stevo. And then we're going to go to Maddie instead of going from Maddie to Stevo as they came out in reverse order this time. These are the two into a fight for pole position. Stevo will most likely be the driver to get pole. We saw a 47.4, I believe, last time with the fast lap of the race. In the last one being a 47.2 from Maddie. So their pace very, very similar. But the McLaren definitely being a limiting factor here around Monza, as the track is very similar attempt to last time in qualifying. So it's all going to be about the two drivers here that are fighting for pole. Who knows, maybe they both mess up and then Longy takes pole or something. We'll have to see, but all eyes to Stevo here, as we're going to have a full onboard lap here with the McLaren 720S GT3 Evo, car number 6, with Stevo behind the wheel now. Oh, shut up. Go on board. No hard, no nothing. And just a pure onboard lap for the first lap of Stevo's qualifying. Enjoy. So as it rounds Alvareto curve, Stevo has now completed his lap, and now we're going to go back to Maddie in the Ford Mustang. Full cockpit lap here with the telemetry enabled for the Ford Mustang. Currently Stevo. Oh no, they didn't make the line. Oh, has Stevo made the line? No. Longy has made the line. So currently Stevo sits on provisional pole position here with a 1 minute 47.9. Maddie sits in P2 with a 48.0, but because they were both late out of the pit lane, they're going to come home with only one lap here in this qualifying. And Longy is only just behind with a 48.1, so if he improves by a 10th, he pips Maddie to P2. If he improves by 2, well then he's going to get pole position here from absolutely nowhere. I did say this is a possibility, but I kind of discounted it in my mind. So all it takes is one really strong final sector here from Longy to try and take pole. So here we go. cockpit cam, telemetry enabled, all eyes focused along as he heads down towards Ascari. Currently, he's down on his lap time, but all it takes is one good section, and he could find himself in pole position here, down towards Ascari. Third gear, just get it off the brakes, and now tip it in through, hold it right. This is where the warmer tyres are going to come into play. Oh no, he's gone off the track, and he was a 10th up. He carried a bit too much speed, and that's his qualifying efforts over. That's everybody's qualifying efforts over here. Really disappointing for Longy. He could have had pole, but it slipped through his fingers. So Steve-O, once again, is going to take pole with a Matty a 10th behind him. Then Longy, Hoggy back together again on the grid. Then you have Jensen, Perkins, Edenick, Tovasire, Demon Boost, Witchell, Batoni, Swooper, Ross, Mark H, and Ken Blocks, who didn't set a lap in this qualifying. So that is your grid order for race number 3 here in round number 6 at Monza. It is going to be absolutely phenomenal for the race. Once again, Steve-O and Matty find themselves next to each other. It's going to be an absolute cracker, I'm sure. One to watch. And Steve-O will start the grid with Matty behind, much like the second race. I think we're going to see something similar again. The track has cooled down by 2 degrees since the race, so we're going to have 18 minutes ahead of us once again here in Fargone Racing GT Challenge Season 18. And the McLaren leading it off from the Mustang. We'll see Steve-O get off the line quickly again. I think get away from Matty again, I'm sure. But then we'll see something we've seen 2 times before. Matty hounding the back of that McLaren. Steve-O does seem quicker, genuinely, in the first 3 laps, and then he just falls off a bit. Matty, I think, just probably gets the tyres fully up to temp, and the Mustang comes into its own, and she just flies away with it, gets the move done normally around the outside, and just uses her pace. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see if we see it again, or can Steve-O disrupt 3 wins on the trot for Matty here in Monza? It's all to find out, as it's 40 seconds left on the timer, and then we have one last ride here around Monza. It's been a good night so far. Hopefully the drivers out on the track can end the night with an absolute bang, just to close out what has been one of the best nights of racing I think I've ever witnessed here, especially in Fargone Racing. This is probably the highlight round so far. Monza always creates absolute carnage, and also really good racing once everybody's through turn 1. So there we go, the drivers get back underway for one last time here in Fargone Racing at Monza. Steve-O leading away from Matty for the 2nd race in a row. Maybe Steve-O will be able to hold on to the lead this time. It's all to find out as we get ready to go towards the green flags here for one last time tonight. So down towards the flag we go. One more time at Monza before we head over to the United States and go to Watkins Glen, which is also going to be a good race where the McLaren is very nice. But here we go. The green light has gone. The green flag is waving. And it's go, 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 go here in Fargone Racing for one last time tonight. Race 3 gets underway. Steve-O gets off to a good start. And this time it's going to be Longy who's putting the pressure on Matty as we head down towards turn 1, though. Matty breaks late at turn 1 again. Much like race 2, trying it the long way around to Steve-O. Isn't able to pull it up in time to try and get it the long way around. Steve-O has a very contained turn 1. Hoggy finds himself under pressure here from Zach Jensen as we head through Curva Grande. The Mustang is going to inch ahead and take the P4 place as we head down towards the Della Roggia chicane. And I think that Hoggy is just going to have to slot in behind Zach Jensen here and then take it back later on. So Zach Jensen takes P4 from Hoggy Now, further back up to Stevo versus Maddie. They've settled back into single file. Little bit of gravel off in the background. I think that Hoggy is actually trying this through the first two Lesmos as the Ferrari down the inside has a wobble. Jensen's going to try it the long way round at the second Lesmo. Hoggy backs out of it, has to clobber the curb, and now he's going to have to try it again, but he doesn't have the legs in a straight line being in a Ferrari, and it's actually going to be the Ferrari of Lee Perkins who's finding himself in a bad spot of weather here. Oh, I mean, sorry, Eden Nick who's finding himself in a bad spot of weather here against Lee Perkins into Ascari. The BMW loses out. The 33 Max Verstappen Ferrari takes the 6th place off of Eden Nick as we head towards Sector 3, as the gap between Stevo and Maddie is less than a tenth, and Maddie's going to try to get this one done extremely early here. She goes down the inside of Alboreto Curve, and they're going side by side through the final corner. Maddie is not waiting around this time. Longy is trying to get involved in the action too. He wants a piece of this as we head down the straight at Monza. Maddie takes the lead, but maybe Longy will try and make it 2 down 1 straight. Stevo trying to fight this one back. They're nearly 3 wide down to turn 1. Longy goes up the inside into the braking zone on Maddie. Isn't able to pull it. Maddie goes off the track. Stevo goes off the track. Stevo's going to lose out to P4 as well, I think, as we head on to the run through Curva Grande as Maddie rejoins onto the track now. She's going to cede the place to Longy, who takes the lead of this race for the first time of all the 3 races. Stevo loses out to Zach Jensen as well, and now he's going to be under pressure here from Hoggy, who's going to back out of this one. Stevo has immense amounts of work to do now. He's going to have to get by 1 Mustang and 2 others as well. Maybe not, it's going to be so difficult, maybe not, to get past Jensen, who's just had a massive moment through the exit of the De La Roggia chicane. He's able to get it back together. Stevo is going to lose a lot of time for this one, but now Maddie has a new challenger to face one-on-one. It's not going to be Stevo. It's going to be Longy here in race 3, who's going to be fighting away with Maddie. They're all going to try and seize the opportunity while it's ahead of them. Longy is going to have to make his car extremely wide here in race 3 if he wants to keep the absolute flying car of the night behind him. Longy versus Maddie. Not something I expected to say tonight after the first 2 races, but here we are. Monza, the Temple of Speed, creating another classic here in Fargone as we head down towards Alboreto Curve. We're going to go to the camera set too. I was going to say helicam, but anyway. Here we go. Maddie chasing the tail, but it's not going to be so easy for her now. Not because Stevo's a bad driver. Not at all. He's extremely quick, but because it's Mustang versus Mustang, it's not that hard to overtake the McLaren at Monza because she had the extra straight line speed. Now she's going to have to get it done with good exits and good runs all around. As actually in the background, Hoggy is trying to fight Stevo here as we head down into turn 1, but I think Hoggy he slightly knows it's not his fight. If he was going to clear the McLaren, I think he would have left it and just gone for it, but because he wasn't going to be fully ahead, I think Stevo's his ticket to getting through the field here, but Stevo is going to have to work like an absolute workhorse here to get it done on Zach Jensen. As down towards the De La Roggia chicane we go. Longy definitely doesn't have Maddie's pace whatsoever, as he's made a mistake here. Maddie might seize her opportunity. She pulls to the right hand side. She's going to try the inside of the first Lesmo. She's going to go down the inside on Longy. They're wheel to wheel. Longy thought there was going to be contact and turned left in the middle of the corner, and she is going to get through into P1. Through goes Maddie. Longy just a little bit tentative, loses out. Now Maddie takes the race lead again. Stevo struggling to hold on to the back of the 3 Mustangs actually. Jensen and Longy and Maddie are pulling away from the McLaren. I'm sure he'll pick up the pace. And Maddie continues towards Ascari. Longy is in P2. Jensen is in P3. Stevo in P4 chasing behind, as well as Hoggy, who's going to try and pick up the pieces that are left behind before him. So we are less than 6 minutes in to this 18-minute race, and it's still a singular car train at this point. It hasn't split up into 2 huge packs. It's just a little bit of a pack at the back, and then the rest of the cars here in the leading train. So Maddie is going to use her pace now to pull away from Longy as much as she possibly can, I'm sure, as we'll get the helicam going now here in Fargone Racing, so you just get a good overview of everything that's going on. It's been an absolutely fantastic night of racing for Longy and Maddie and Steve-O and anybody else, as Longy's just actually gone very deep under brakes. Nearly runs into the back of Maddie. Very, very close between the two of them. Steve-O there, he actually really is struggling to stay with the three Mustangs. I guess it's the last thing you'd want as a McLaren driver. The Mustangs in a 1-2-3 slipstreaming each other along the circuit. It's going to be very tricky for him to actually keep up. He's actually 1.1 seconds behind Jensen, so he's got some work to do. Maddie is actually not even commanding at the front either. Longy definitely has the pace. Maddie's still quicker. She's got 7/10, but it's definitely not going to be an easy one for her. She's still going to have to work for this one extremely, extremely hard. So down the straight we go. Longy was a bit slow off the exit. He made a bit of a mistake. Jensen's now going to try the outside at Ascari for the P2 position. It's a risky place to try and go for a move. The Mustangs go side by side, but with the inside line, Longy's able to hold on. Steve-O now arrives back on the scene. Maddie has over a second gap now as the Mustang pushing extremely hard. Maddie's still the quickest car on the circuit. Steve-O has a lot of work ahead of him to get past two McLarens. I mean, not two McLarens, two Mustangs here at Monza. It's a hard task, and with them battling as well, he's going to have to pick his poison perfectly to get involved here in Monza. So the Mustangs head onto the straight. Steve-O hot in pursuit as well. Down the straight we go. Longy is going to have to defend from Zach Jensen here onto the braking zone. Pulls to the right hand side. Goes Jensen into the braking zone. Late on the brakes goes the silver and black Mustang. And that is going to be Jensen through on Longy for a moment. But a bit of a poor exit there from Jensen. And Longy's going to try drag race this through Curva Grande. But now I don't think he has the... He's not close enough to go for a move down into the chicane. Steve-O is now completely on the scene. And he's going to try and attack the Mustangs here anytime now, I would assume. Into the chicane we go. Oh no, that's a mistake there from Jensen, who just managed to get the place. He rejoins behind, slots in to 4th place. Steve-O gets a place on one of the Mustangs for free. Now he's going to have to chase down Longy, get that move done, and then if he can, chase down Maddie, who's currently 1.7 out in the lead, and with a bit of battling as well. I'm sure Steve-O is going to struggle once again, and it's not been similar to race 1 and race 2 in the regard of Maddie having to get it done on Steve-O around the outside. They both just went off at turn 1, and what happened. And Hoggy is trying to attack Jensen down into the braking zone, not able to do anything about that one. But Steve-O is having to push like a madman this race around. He's not just going to settle in for P2. He's got to attack for P2. Not a sight I thought I'd be seeing here tonight in Monza, but he's going to have to give it his best go to get past a Ford Mustang. We've seen him fail time and again here in race 1 and race 2 against Maddie, but we're halfway through. He has more pace than Longy, but now just the challenge is going to be getting past this bright pink Ford Mustang as we head onto the straight. I think he can do it. I know he can do it, actually, but the matter is of when and not if. So through turn 1 and turn 2, the McLaren down. Oh, as Hoggy's gone off the racetrack there in the background. He's going to rejoin behind Zach Jensen and might even find himself under pressure there from the 33 car of Perkins. Not quite. Yeah, not quite there in the background. Steve-O fighting really hard here. He's not able to get a move around the outside or down the inside. Maddie's made a huge error there, drifting away through the Del Roggia chicane, showboating at this point. But even nursing a wrist injury, she's been absolutely dominant in Monza. She's just got to hold on another 8 minutes to get all 3 race wins here in Italy. Just onto the straight we go. McLaren versus Mustang, but a massive slipstream for Steve-O as we head down the straight. Longy is going to defend for his absolute life to try and make it a Mustang 1-2, and more importantly, a P2 for him as we head through Ascari. The McLaren just bounces around so much over the curbs as onto the mini straight before the final corner we go. This could be a good place for Steve-O to try and make a move, and he's very close behind Longy as well. As down towards the final braking zone of the circuit we go. Steve-O is going to try this the long way round as Longy is defending air a little bit there at the final corner, which compromises his run onto the straight. Steve-O has an absolutely brilliant exit, and now he has a slipstream all the way down to the 150 meter board at turn 1, where then he has to shut it down on the brakes and get the car to slow down. But even with a slipstream, the Mustang's still too quick in a straight line for Steve-O to do anything about it. He has a tricky hill to climb here, as he nearly, I thought he ran deep there at turn 1. It's just different lines compared to the Ford Mustang, which is just the difference between the two cars. As through Curva Grande for what feels like the billionth time tonight, probably is about the 7 billionth time tonight actually. As 3 18-minute races, a very tricky format for the races out there tonight. It's getting very late as well, so Mr. Comsbox out here is definitely struggling as well. The Mustang is so gross on the straight, says Tash. See, you get it. It's absolutely phenomenal how fast the Mustang is down the straight. So it just makes it impossible to overtake, even with such a caliber driver like Steve-O's Tobasai to drive through. Steve-O is having to work so hard to just even stay close to Longy, even though he has the pace, and it's really showing. Steve-O is just he's so close behind the Mustang, but with the straight lines, he just can't get it done. He has 5.5 more minutes to do it though. I'm sure he'll pick his moment right and still get the P2. Maddie still holding the fast lap. A little bit slower actually, despite it being just that little bit cooler than race number 2. They're a bit slower at this point, but I'm sure the lap times will continue to improve. But she's also not under pressure to continue going faster here. She just needs to manage out the front. As actually Longy has got back into a second to Maddie. So Steve-O really needs to get a move on here, because if he plays his cards right, he gets past Longy in a reasonable fashion where they don't lose any lap time. He could easily find himself fighting Maddie here in race 3, but he only has 3 more laps to do it. It's going to be an absolute blockbuster finish here for Steve-O, no matter what he does, whether he gets past or he doesn't. So, that's the styrofoam boards are out on the racetrack there. In race 3, just from all the turn 1 chaos that's ensued over the past 3 races, specifically this race. But what we're going to do is, before we get ready to charge up for a final 2 laps, we're going to go on board for the rest of the lap with Steve-O, so I can take a sip of water and just prepare myself for the carnage that's about to ensue. Due to me sucking, I didn't double click the onboard button, I only single clicked it, so we only had like not even a quarter of a lap with our actual onboard. But anyway, now we get ready and we get bolted in for the final 2 laps here. Well, I believe the final 2 laps here in Monza. So this should be the penultimate lap of the race, if I've predicted correctly. Maybe not actually, we might have 3 more, but anyway. Steve-O hot on the heels of, well actually not that hot on the heels of Longy. It's like 5 tenths behind, but Longy actually is pretty close behind Maddie. The gap is only about 6 or 7 tenths, so we could see Longy be the car to disrupt the race leader here. Maddie, I think her wrist probably causing us the problems here. She's probably just really having to nurse it here in the final race. I know what it's like racing with an injury. I had to do it myself for pretty much the entirety of the past year. I'm actually still injured, but I still race. But yeah, it's really difficult to manage, and it's really difficult to push through. So I do feel for Maddie, but she's doing an absolutely fantastic job with the race wins in 1 and 2, as the gap between Maddie and Longy is 0.3 of a second. It's going to be a blockbuster finish here, as this will be the penultimate lap. So we're about to head on to the final lap of the race here in Fargone, and it is a 3-way fight for the lead, but it's mainly between Maddie and Longy, as Steve-O dropping off just a little bit. So Maddie, can she go 3 for 3, or can Longy from nowhere try and take the win in the dying stages? We'll find out here on the final lap. Maddie leads us away as we head on to the final lap of race 3. It's going to be Maddie versus Longy. The final lap begins now, down towards turn 1. Where's Longy going to go? Will he pick the inside? He's close enough. He's going to go to the right-hand side. He's going to go down the inside on Maddie. He's on the inside. Maddie on the outside. Maddie gives him the room, but she has the apex for the next corner, and now she's going to have to run it all the way the long way around to Curva Grande. Steve-O is now going to get involved here. The battling is already caught the McLaren back up as we head through Curva Grande. Can Maddie hold on to the race win here, or will she lose out? Longy currently in the lead, and now she's going to have to try and do everything in her power to take the race 3 win. Longy is caught up the past 3 laps from absolutely nowhere, but I think he could take the victory here in race 3 as we head towards the Lesmos. It's going to take an absolutely phenomenal move for Maddie to try and take the win. Steve-O could even pick up a P2 here if he's lucky as we head through the second Lesmo. It's going to be Longy, then Maddie, then Steve-O, and Maddie makes a mistake here, so it's looking like it's going to go Longy's way, and Steve-O is now side by side with Maddie as on the final straight of the final lap. Maddie might go first to third here in Monza. Steve-O moves up into P2. It's all gone wrong for Maddie, but it's all up for Longy and Steve-O as we head through Ascari. Maddie is going to be absolutely desperate to try and get back past Steve-O for the P2 place, but I'm going to shift my focus to Longy in a second. So will Maddie try this the long way round of the Parabolica as we are on the final lap of the final race of the night? Maddie, the long way round at Parabolica on Steve-O. I don't think she's going to get it done. Steve-O inches ahead, but Longy, of all people, is going to take the victory here in race 1 from nowhere in the first 2, or from the podium in the first 2, just finishing P3 significantly behind the others. Takes the win in race 3. A phenomenal drive from the driver that got P3 in the first 2 races, and he gets a fastest lap to boot. So Monza putting on an absolute show. Longy had the absolute pace when it mattered. I'm wondering if that's tyres or Maddie nursing a wrist injury. I wonder where it's all gone wrong for that car number 4 Mustang, for her to lose 2 places on the final lap. But Steve-O gets P2 again. Maddie gets P3. I was confident she was going to go 3 for 3 tonight, but it's not to be. Zach Jensen gets P4. Eda Nick gets P5. Hoggy gets P6. Then Mark Witchell gets P7. Lee Perkins gets... I can't look at him for some reason, but he gets P7. Demon Boost gets P8. Oh no, Ken Blocks is still falling down. I don't know what's going on. Dave Ross gets P number 9. Bertoni gets P10. Mark H gets P11. Swooper gets P12. Toba Sire rounds out your grid for P13. He's still not even taken the flag. I really wonder what's happened to Maddie there in the dying stages. I think that's probably tyre related, honestly. She had so much pace, and then I just saw the gap closing and closing and closing, but then on the final lap it looked like she was going to have like 8 tenths, and then onto the straight, maybe she made a mistake at the second Lesmo. It closed all the way to 3 tenths, and I was like, oh, this is on here. And I think Maddie leaving just a little bit too much space has cost her out there. She just didn't give the squeeze at turn 1 probably like she could have, but it's all just fair racing at the end of the day. She left the space. She just wanted to survive. She still gets a podium at the end of the day. 2 wins and a podium is not something to scoff about. So Longy is your race winner, followed by Reese, then Maddie, Jensen, Eda Nick, Hoggy, Perkins, Witchell, Blocks, Boost, Ross, Bertoni, H, Swooper, and Tobasire in race 3 of 3. So that is going to conclude racing action in Fargone Racing. It's the triple header at Monza. That has been all for tonight's action. Matty took the first 2. Longy takes the final 1. Stevo got P2 in all of the races, so really good consistency from him. It's been Lindsay in the comms box once again here in Fargone Season 18, and it's going to be all for tonight. Goodbye.